we certainly want to thank you for joining this project this year, and it came with a little bit of a challenge to us. We didn't expect that we'd actually see 100 steers being entered, but we did. So it created a little bit of challenge to us, but we've got everything straightened out. Much thanks to the members and their parents for helping us either change dates or change abattoirs so that we were able to fit everyone in the competition this year. Just want to make sure that you keep looking at your email or checking your email every once in a while. The committee is actually planning the awards banquet and details for the delivery of the animals to the abattoirs and times and everything like that. So we'll be sending those out as we get those finalized closer to the date and once we know exactly what's going to be happening here within the province in the next few months. Another thing, if you have any issues with the calves, a calf, if it gets sick and you have to withdraw it from the competition or whatever, let us know as soon as possible. The abattoirs are stuffed right full right now, so we want to make sure that they're actually able to replace that hook if they need to. So any kind of communication to us would be greatly appreciated. And I'd also like to ask you to read the criteria again, reread that, because there's some things that once you get closer to the date of delivery and that, there's some things that you have to keep in mind as well. So I'd ask you to do that. Tracy mentioned Genome Alberta as the sponsor. They have a great the committee cannot thank them enough. 5 years ago when we started this competition, it wouldn't have happened without this organization stepping out and contributing funds to actually start this program. So if you have a chance to actually take and send them a thank you note or anything like that, it'd be greatly appreciated, just because they are near and dear to our heart as far as the committee is concerned. So with that, I'm going to introduce Nikki Westerson. Nikki was raised on a commercial beef farm just outside of Blackie, Alberta, and she spent 8 years as a 4-H Alberta member, raising steers, heifers, as well as she was involved in the horse project. Nikki attended the University of Lethbridge, where she graduated with a bachelor's degree in agricultural economics. Right now, Nikki is the Western Canadian Territory Manager for Neogen Canada, managing their beef genomics, and she's going to tell you a lot more about that tonight. So Nikki likes helping producers manage their genetics and being part of the Canadian beef industry. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nikki. Thank you for joining us tonight, and keep your questions or put your questions in the chat, and we'll certainly be happy to relay them to Nikki and get everything answered. So off you go. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Rod and Tracy, for inviting me to do this, and thank you to everyone for participating in this program and doing testing their animals through Neogen Canada. So I will let me know when we okay, are we on that first slide? I think so.
Yep, you're there.
Okay. I will shut my video off due to internet, and we will kind of get going. So, so this is the Identity Beef profile presentation, and we're kind of doing it for the Alberta 4-H members, the Carcass competition. So this is going to be a little bit different as opposed to you guys usually, or a lot of producers, when they do this testing, they kind of learn this information on the front end and then get their results. So you guys have an advantage. Most of you have probably received your results and had a little bit of time to kind of go in and look at things. So be sure, if you have questions, I will try my best to answer them. If I can't, I will find someone who can, and we'll get you the answers everyone's looking for. So what Neogen is, we are the largest agrigenomics company in the world, essentially. So we have a food safety division, animal safety, and then genomics, which is the division that encompasses the DNA testing. So we are located all over the world. So we have a lab in Canada. Our main lab is in Lincoln, Nebraska. We are in Brazil, Scotland, China, Australia. We're kind of in a big acquisition and a big growth phase. So as DNA testing is growing and getting more developed and becoming more useful, and the data is becoming more relevant, then DNA testing as a whole, especially when it comes to agriculture, is really growing, and we're there to support it. So like I said, if you have any questions, here's my contact information. Feel free to shoot me an email, give me a phone call. We do have a whole team of geneticists, and we're always looking to do different projects and help with programs such as the Carcass project with the Alberta 4-H Club. So what do we test? Well, we at Neogen Canada test just about anything. Everything has DNA. So we do pigs, chickens, horses. We're just starting at alpaca projects. We do spruce trees. I don't know if we have any polar bear DNA in the lab right now, but quite a bit of insects. We're starting human testing, some bio testing. We always kind of get some reclamation samples in, and then we're going to be launching some bison products. So we have a lot going on, and it's all very interesting. And then kind of as everything grows and develops, then so do our services. Oh, and then I guess the little fish. So just a quick introduction to DNA. So DNA it's made up of units called base pairs. So those are the pairs that bind together within the DNA strand. So A to T, C to G, those are the 4 different types. And when we look at it, cattle have about 3 billion base pairs. So they can have a ton of different DNA combinations, and that variation is what accounts to the genetic diversity in the cattle, in all kind of organisms, and then the way that they do the genetic recombination when mating happens. That is what contributes to different hair colors, different behaviors, different kind of phenotype traits. So a couple of quick terms before we get going any further. If I say the word phenotype, that is traits that you see. So if you have a black animal, one of their phenotypes is that their coat color is black. When I say genotype, that is analyzing their genetic makeup, so the stuff that you can't see. So that's what the DNA testing really is trying and attempting to figure out, is the genotype of the animal to contribute and help predict and estimate the phenotypes. So what we will see and what we will be able to kind of determine of that animal. So another term that I might talk about is Snips. So Snips is single nucleotide polymorphisms, which are the small changes in DNA. So the Snips tell us about the content of the DNA, and then where those SNPs are different is what makes up each animal's differences. So for example, in these 3 animals, they all have, this is one single strand of the different SNPs. So they have some A's, they have some T's, G's, C's, all of that. So when we analyze these animals, we can see that here, in those strands, they're different. So the blue animal in the middle, he has a T where the other ones have a G. So that could mean he's gonna have horns. That could mean a bunch of different things. He could have a different genetic condition than the other ones. And then it's the same with this next piece. So the bottom animal, he has an A where the other 2 have C. So that could contribute. So when we analyze the DNA, we're looking for this variation in the SNPs, and then that's going to help us distinguish the differences in the animal's DNA and then what we are going to see in that animal. So what is the actual process of DNA testing? It's not magic. It's a very kind of scientific, operational process, and it's pretty just like one thing after the other. So for our lab, which is based in Edmonton, which is where everyone sent their samples, so sample reception, so we receive your hair cards, and then we're going to process. So then we're going to put that hair card and we're going to extract the DNA from that animal, and then we actually fly all of our DNAs DNA extractions down to Lincoln, to our main lab. And then there it undergoes the testing, the genotype, all of the kind of the big high tech stuff. And then those results, so we'll get a whole sheet of the different Snips. Those results get sent to Edmonton. We analyze the data, run it in the different profiles or the different traits that we're supposed to be looking at, and then we send those results back to you. So all of that process takes about 21 calendar days, and which is pretty good considering it comes to us, we extract it, it gets shipped to Lincoln, Lincoln genotypes it, we get it back, we get it to you. So due to COVID-19 recently, some of those turnaround times have been delayed as both labs have been affected, both in Edmonton and Lincoln, Nebraska. So I do apologize for anyone that has been waiting longer for the results. It was just one of those things that we have to follow a certain protocol set out by the government, and probably one of the reasons we're all doing more Zoom meetings. So standard practice is 21 calendar days. So then this is just a little bit of the computer systems that are happening in Lincoln that we thankfully don't have to deal too much with. So now we can get kind of to the fun part. So the Identity Beef profile, it is the first and kind of one of the main and the only genetic profiles that is designed for crossbred commercial animals. We do have some straight bred animals using this profile as well. What it does, it is an estimate of genetic merit for 16 different traits. So that's going to include maternal, performance, and carcass traits. So with any sort of genomic profile, it's only going to be as good as the reference population. So even when we talk about 23andMe or Ancestry DNA, the reason if anyone has ever done that, or if anyone's parents has ever done that, you'll probably see that you get kind of updated emails saying, we found more traits. This is what you're going to see, or this is one of the effects that might be happening in your DNA. It's because their reference population has changed. Either they've got more samples in and they've identified different gene markers associated with different phenotypes, and they're relaying that. So for us, the Identity Beef profile, it's backed by International Genetic Solutions, which means we have a whole swack of animals that are in the reference population, which means that the data is going to be more accurate. It's the bottom line. So where you would use the Identity Beef profile and what it can help you do, I always encourage guys or producers to rank and select replacement heifers. So if you have a problem in your herd, whether it's your kind of your calf size is getting smaller when it comes to time to weaning weights, and we want to kind of get a little bit more dollars when we're weaning our calves, then we can use the profile to select some of those heifers that are going to produce bigger calves down the road. If a problem is fertility, if you've been keeping your replacement heifers and then a couple years down the road they're not breeding back as well as you'd like, then we can select based on fertility traits, all of those things. You can help produce feeder cattle to fit your market. So for 4-H calves, we give measures of average daily gain, their residual feed intake, and what those carcass traits are going to look like. So when you guys are out marketing your 4-H steers, you can have a lot of confidence estimating their gain as for when they're going to finish, what level they're going to finish, and then also to help market those carcass traits. If you're going to be going into, I know when I was a 4-H member, I was going into the Safeways and Sobeys and marketing my animals there. So you can have a lot of confidence and bring these results in and really kind of illustrate the quality of the animal that you are producing. You can help it use this test to score your commercial bulls. Again, if you have any issues or problems that you want to change, you can use that. And then also the Identity Beef test, it does include sire verification or parentage. So if you have your replacement heifers and you want to see who which of your bulls are producing your top animals or your bottom animals, then it will do that, and it will really help make sure that your bulls are doing their job and doing what they want to. One of my customers, they parentage tested all of their calves this past spring, and it turned out that one bull produced 63 calves. So one of them was very effective. So the traits that are reported for maternal, we have birth weight, calving ease direct, which is the percentage of unassisted births. So that's, if you're looking at bulls, that's the percentage, or that's the chance that the bull's daughters are gonna be easy calvers. Calving ease maternal is that animal, if they're gonna have calving difficulties, and the calving ease on that. Heifer pregnancy rate, so that's an important one. Milk is not in pounds of milk produced, but in it contributes to pounds of animals or pounds of weaned animals. So a higher milk score is going to equate to more pounds weaned. Stayability, so that is the probability of that animal staying in the herd for 6 or more productive years. So that one factors in your feet score, kind of their weatherability score, and then it does factor in a small bit of kind of their teat and udder score for making that animal productive for those 6 years. Docility, that's temperament. When it comes to 4-H animals, that's a pretty important one for some of the younger members for sure, because we want nice, quiet, tame animals to be halter breaking, ones that you can trust. For growth, some of those traits. Weaning weight, so that's going to be that animal's weight at 205 days, an estimate on that. Average daily gain, you kind of want a high number of that. It's going to equate to more pounds gained per day. Yearling weight, so that's going to be 365 days at a year. Residual feed intake, so that is the animal's efficiency of converting pounds of food eaten into pounds on the carcass. And then for some of the carcass traits, marbling, so how much of that intramuscular tissue is going to be in there, and that's going to be represented, the degree of marbling at the ribeye area. So that's in the USDA marbling units, which is similar but a little different to Canada. The ribeye area estimates the muscling in the carcass. The fat thickness is scored as the depth of fat in inches over the ribeye, and the hot carcass weight is essentially the weight of the carcass after the slaughter and the removal of the head, hide, intestines, all of that stuff. So out of all of these traits, basically speaking, you want higher scores. So all of the scores are going to be evaluated from 1 to 10, and with the exception of birth weight and residual feed intake. So birth weight, a score of 10 means a higher birth weight. So then that might be more calving difficulties. Generally speaking, we don't breed for large birth weights, so a lower score for that is good, but then you want that animal to be efficient and grow quickly. And then for residual feed intake, the lower that score is, then the more efficient that animal is. So those are about the only two that you kind of want scores to be on the lower end. So then once we get those scores, and once you all are on your dashboards to see your scores, you can create different indexes. So we'll have a production, maternal, and terminal index, and they can be designed for specific needs or opportunities. So like I was talking to earlier, say you wanted to do this test for a group of 5 feeders that you know are going to be going to market, then you could create an index of the traits that you're trying to sort out or filter out or market, and then you can rank those animals based on those traits. So we'll kind of go through a little bit about the indexes. So the maternal index, where you'd use this, so this is a pre-populated index. You would use it essentially to pick which mama cows you want to. So it's going to help with your calving difficulties. Like I said, heifers that don't breed back, poor conception, dispositions, all of that. So when you use this index to really kind of target those maternal traits, then those cows that you pick to be mama cows hopefully will produce the type of animals that you're geared towards and the ones that are going to be in your herd for a long, long time. For the production index, where you would use this one, so this is a weighted index, so this one kind of factors in a little bit of everything. So it's going to have a little bit about the maternal traits. So as you can see, calving ease, maternal, stability, but then it also factors in how that animal is going to feed out. So your residual feed intake, average daily gain, and then it also has a little bit on the carcass quality. So whether it's tenderness or marbling. So why would you use this to either select your heifers, your replacement heifers, or to pick your kind of 4-H steer projects? Is that these animals, they're gonna not require extra feed to maintain good body condition. They're gonna be very efficient animals. They're gonna pass those traits onto their future calf crops. And then it also helps to sort animals kind of similar potential or to be marketed based on that. And then, so if you use this test for your pen of feeders, and then you kind of sort them on that, it leads to more uniform and efficient gaining and finishing out of those animals. So then your timing will be better. And then obviously fewer days on feed at the end reduces some of those input costs, gets you a bigger check at the end. So the terminal index. So this one is totally based on the carcass. So carcass weight, fat thickness, ribeye, how that animal is going to feed out, and tenderness. So it's really good for if you're raising the feeder calves or retaining ownership in calves that are going to a feedlot. It's really going to help kind of sort some of those high quality carcass predicted traits from some of the other animals, and it's really going to help with some of the marketing. So with some of the diversity in herds right now that are going to a lot to the farm to table, and with Alberta kind of switching some of their butcher programs, we're seeing this index be used quite a bit because it does help predict and estimate good quality carcasses and animals that are genetically more prone to have kind of these traits, and you can help manage that aspect and breed up and breed down to those traits. So what do all these numbers actually look like? So when we look at the left, so we'll see the identity scores, so 1 to 10, and then how each trait is measured. So birth weight, pounds. So when you look at kind of a score of 1 to 10, there's about 11 pounds difference between those scores. So we say for that trait, you can kind of think, okay, it's about a pound a score. So when we say we want lower birth weight, so it's a matter of a couple pounds difference, but it all depends on kind of that animal too, and what the sire looks like in terms of birth weight, and same with the cow. So we can't forget about that. The cow, it's not always based on the sire and kind of those traits. The cow also has genetic merit. Then when we look at the calving ease direct or calving ease maternal, those are percentages. Docility, it's rated as a percentage. We just kind of say that one, it's a big chart of numbers and a lot of science and data that they did to equate that trait, but we just say, well, an animal with a score of 9 or 10 on docility, it's probably going to have a little bit of a better temperament than a 4 or 5. It's kind of hard to differ the percentage there. And then if we shoot across to some of the carcass traits, so when we look at like the tenderness test, for example, you'll see that that is a negative number. So that test is rated on, measured by what is called the Warner-Bratz shear force test. So we want a higher score, you want a lower number, and that's going to resemble a more tender carcass. So tenderness is an interesting trait too, because it's not necessarily incentivized or rewarded financially, but it is a very important trait to our industry. And 4-H calves are known to be very tender animals. You guys, with your record keeping, with your cost per day and the feed that they're getting, and just kind of that sort of management, it does help raise some really tender meat. And so that trait is pretty important as an industry, and something that we definitely need to breed with preservation of kind of growing and maintaining for sure. So, and then as far as where to find this trait or this chart, kind of as a reference point, there is a link in your dashboard. And what I might do too is send kind of the handbook out to Tracy, and she can share it with everyone also. And it has kind of everything that we've covered from all of this slide, and it'll just kind of go through how to apply some of these traits and where to use them a little bit more. So why profile your cattle? Kind of when we go back to DNA, and that there is 3 billion different kind of DNA aspects. When we look at how many possible genetic recombinations can happen in a breeding system, it's so many. It is so many, and we can do selective breeding, we can do really kind of strategic mating, and we can look and try and pick out the best bulls with the best traits and the best cows with the best traits, but it's not going to be any guaranteed product. So when we do add in genetics, it helps put a little bit more of that piece of the puzzle together. Even when we look at siblings can be 30 to 60% similar DNA. So for me, I have blonde hair and I'm kind of short. Well, my brother, he has dark hair and he's quite tall. And it's just a matter of kind of the mating lottery and the way that our kind of DNA was recombinated. So that's important. And then the nice thing about the other aspect about the iGenity beef profile, so all of those traits that we're profiling, the 16 different traits, those are heritable. So those are traits that are going to be passed on, and they're very heritable. So if you have a cow with a high weaning weight score and a bull with a high weaning weight score, like I said, no guarantees, but chances are the calf is probably going to have a decent weaning weight. So then when we get the results, when they're delivered, what we'd expect is, so this is for a lot of the dashboards associated with this, it's kind of the one animal and then all of the different traits. But we can see that it does give all of the different indexes that were talked about. And if you go to the dashboard, you can really kind of pick which indexes and which traits you want to look at. So I know that's a busy chart for a lot of these where it will have just one animal on it. So, and then a little bit, this is talking about the different indexes again. And then this is more so what your guys' dashboards will look like. So you'll have the one animal, birth weight, calving ease, all of those different scores. And then if you look at the screen, so where at the top left part where it says Neogen, then it says test records, and then there's that little blue box that says tools. You're going to click that drop down and it'll go into indexes. And then that's where you're going to select either your maternal index, your performance index, or the carcass or the terminal index, which is the carcass traits. So you can kind of go back and it'll pre-sort. You can do all three on that animal and see if that steer was a heifer, what the maternal index would look like, or it might give you a little bit of insight to, if you're raising your own 4-H steer, that might give you a little bit of insight into what that steer's mother kind of was like as a maternal animal. So I do encourage you to go in and play with this. You really can't ruin it. You can't wreck anything. Go into your dashboard, play around, do the drop downs, go in, do the benchmarking tools. If you ever get stuck and you don't know how to get out of it, just exit out and then re-sign in to your dashboard. Once the results from our lab is processed, we will email out the dashboard logins, so everyone should get one. I know sometimes if one person sent in multiple samples, it was a little confusing to try and get everyone set up, but if you aren't seeing your results, send me an email and we'll try and get that figured out for sure. So just to talk a little bit more about what other testing we offer at Neogen for the commercial animals. So we do have a test that's called Vigor. So Vigor is a genetic tool to measure heterosis. So heterosis basically is how different that animal is, the variability, and how you can increase variability in that animal is different breeds. So it'll give a 1 to 10 score on kind of how crossbred that cattle or that animal is, and then that's going to be an estimate of their hybrid vigor. So what hybrid vigor contributes to is fertility, pounds. So we say more vigorous animals that with a higher level of heterosis wean higher weighing calves, which does equate to more profit. So we'll just kind of go through this one quickly and what else it can do. So this one, we really encourage this for your replacements or your female animals, more so than kind of your market steers, because your female animals, generally speaking, are going to have a longer life than your market steers. So hybrid vigor, it will lead to increased fertility, lower cull rates, more pounds weaned, greater feed efficiency. So that animal is going to stay in the herd and be more productive and make you more money for longer. So a 1 score increase in vigor, it leads to more fertility, so about a 4% increase in the probability of that heifer rebreeding, longevity, so staying around longer, and then healthier progeny, so they're going to have healthier calves. When I talked about identity beef, those traits are heritable, so those traits get passed down onto their calves for years and years. Heterosis and vigor is not heritable, so it's based solely on kind of profiling that animal once to see how long and how productive she's going to be. So then also a 1.4, well, what does kind of, how many breeds are in an animal of 1 to that scores a 1 or it scores a 4? So a purebred animal, say that animal's 100% Angus, their vigor score is going to be 1. Say they're 50% Simmental, 50% Angus, that vigor score could be between a 2 and a 4. It's going to depend on that. If we kind of have like 5 or 6 different breeds of that animal, it's probably going to come back like an 8 or a 9. So that's kind of how that is determined. So kind of in summary of that and what this product and what this helps you with in terms of determining your 4-H steers in the future, if you want to become a cattle producer or have an active role, kind of how you can use this testing to really get to your goals and kind of identify issues or what you're having and what you like, then some of these genomic profiles are a great tool. And when we add in kind of the vigor for some of those animals that are going to have long lives and stay in your herd for a long time, it does give you a lot of exposure to what that animal can contribute to you. And it's just when you combine them, it's the entire package. So what I do encourage you to do, if you have your scores and you have your dashboard access, really spend some time kind of clicking around, trying to figure out what each trait is and where your animal ranks. And then when you're marketing your steers, when you're kind of talking to your friends and family and fellow 4-H members, make sure that you are kind of using those results as part of your marketing program. Genetic testing, it is an investment. It does cost money. So when we look at it, kind of the identity beef profile, normally, if you're not a 4-H member, if you aren't sponsored, it's $45 for that report. So it is an investment. So we do want to make sure that everyone who uses it sees value in it and that they are marketing it and getting a return on that investment, maybe not even in the first year, but kind of down the road as their herds and the industry progresses. So make sure that that's being used. So how do you order? All of you have sent in your samples, so that's been pretty straightforward. So you would purchase sampling materials at our website. So we do have to have the animal's DNA sample on a sample collector. So that is a hair card, which was used in this program, or we have tissue sampling units or a blood card. And then when you're working your animals, collect the samples, and then you can submit them online or mail them in with an order form, and we'll get them processed. So I hope that you all thought it was a pretty easy process and that everything kind of went pretty smooth, and with the exception of kind of our COVID-19 delays. So I think that's kind of all I have as far as kind of what the test is and what you can get out of it. Is there any questions that popped up in the chat or anything?
Nothing yet, but I'm sure that once we start talking here, they may think of some questions. But
Okay.
thanks, Nikki, for that. I think that when we first started this program 5 years ago, we thought it would be a great idea for the members just to be able to look at these results and determine how they thought that their steer was actually going to grade even before they were harvested, and then go back once they actually received the grading results and compare the two, and because they actually have the results, and just see how close they were on some of it, because some of it they were right on, and then the next one you can be off a little bit too. So
yeah, no, for sure. And I think if you get the results and you get to see kind of how that carcass graded, like that's amazing, and definitely compare it. And then, like I said, kind of the genotype of that animal is a snapshot to its life and the management, right? Like I could have the same DNA as a Olympic swimmer. Difference is he learned to swim young and put a lot of time and energy into it, and I didn't, right? So it's a lot of interesting information, and it shows a big picture, especially when you do have the ability to compare your kind of DNA genotype results to the actual carcass grading and how it ranks. So that's awesome that this project exists.
Have a question here. How accurate are the results?
So it's going to depend on each trait. So how we measure for the seed stock and for some of the breed associations, how we measure the accuracy of the traits are what we call progeny equivalents. So some traits are more accurate than others. So for example, when we look at, I don't have the exact chart, but I can give you rough numbers. So a trait like having ease direct, according to progeny equivalent, doing a genotyping test is the equivalent of that cow, we'll just use a cow for example, of having 20 plus calves on the ground and having recorded phenotypes. So that means that, well, you're probably not going to get 20 calves out of a single cow. So that means that trait's pretty accurate. When it comes to a bull, you're definitely going to get 20 calves out of that bull. So it's a little less accurate, but then some of the other traits are going to have a higher progeny equivalent. So higher estimate of phenotypes of calves that are recorded. So it depends really on the trait. Maternal traits, super accurate, super heritable. Carcass traits are a little less predictable. So we'll say, I think progeny equivalence is like 7 or 8 for some of them. So yeah, so it really depends on the trait. As far as percentage, it's anywhere, I think that for this sort of situation of having these types of commercial animals, it's probably anywhere from 30 to 60% would be a rough estimate. So it's definitely just a genetic prediction.
Next question here. Is there an easy way to print from the website that gives a good quality print? Our printout, the numbers are very small.
Okay, so there is, if you download it to Excel, so up at the tools button, if you download it to Excel, then it should kind of throw it into an Excel file, and then you can print out of there because you can kind of format them how you want. And especially since it's probably just one animal, that's a pretty easy way to do that.
Okay. Next question. Which of the traits do you want a high number and which traits do you want a low number?
So basically all of the traits you want a high number with the exception of birth weight and RFI. Low numbers for those two.
Okay. And then where can we compare our scores with the overall benchmarks?
So that again, let me see if I can, I'm just gonna stop, I'm gonna pause my sharing because I will try and get to the website and kind of walk you through it. Okay, are we back on my screen?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay. So this is kind of our Confidence Cattle Company is what we call our dummy account. So if you go to the identitybeefdashboard.com and then in username, you put this, the confidence at identity.com as your username, and then the password confidence. This is, go in here, play around. There's tons of different animals and cases that we kind of go in. So you can really, if you want to see more than just one animal and learn how to sort, this is the account to do that. So all you do is it pulls up all of your different submissions. So then you click on one and it is going to pull up all of the results from that sample. So then we go into tools. So then you go down to benchmark graph. And then you can really kind of evaluate on that. So what we're gonna do here, so reference data. So say this is for 4-H animals. We would go, so my herd only, we're gonna do no, because we want it against kind of all the animals. Countries, we're gonna select Canada, so that it's only evaluated against Canadian animals. We'll select Alberta. And then we'll apply. So then this is going to show the reference data is the line and kind of where my herd falls. And so this is the traits, because this would be just for calving ease maternal. So you can go through and pick different traits. So say you want to see your tenderness score for your herd versus that Canadian Alberta reference data that we picked. So here's the line. So I had 14% of my herd came in at a score of 3. 29% of my herd came in at a score of 4. 21% had a score of 7, where for the benchmark data, only 20% of the herd had a score of 7. So I'm a little bit above there. My score is of 6. And then, yeah, very few kind of lower scores for a higher. So you can go through and you can pick any trait, or you can create a report that it essentially makes all of them. And you can go here. And it's going to have that for all of your scores. So calving, carcass weight, docility, urine vigor score if you do it, average daily gain, all of that. So there's a bunch of different graphs and things that you can really play around with and evaluate. So to get to those indexes that I was kind of going through earlier, I'll show you how to do that since I have it up anyways. So you're going to go to, oh, here's the export to Excel button to make it so that it's a really printer friendly version. That's what you click. Custom index. So the pre-done indexes. So this Identity Maternal Index 2020. So that's the one if we were evaluating heifers. Terminal Index. So that's probably what we're probably going to evaluate for the 4-H animals to see. So when we go there, so it pre-populates on the weights of the index that our geneticists and people that in Lincoln have done. And then you just go add column. And it's going to add that column in next to your scores. So it's going to evaluate all of those traits, and it'll kind of give you the one score for the terminal index. So then and it kind of automatically ranks them. So an estimate for this is that this animal is probably going to have the best carcass rating, is what this is predicting. If we were to go through and add a maternal index, it could be a totally different ranking for these animals. So yeah, so this animal, he was the one, or it was the one, it's a male, so he was the one who had the highest terminal index score. He also has the highest Identity Maternal Index. So this would tell you that, okay, if this is a bull, chances are he's going to raise some really nice heifers for future use, as well as produce some pretty good feeder animals. So he might be a good one to kind of hang around and evaluate and really see if his calves and what he produces correlates to this. So where this one, he kind of had the same terminal, but maternal was a little bit lower. So you can really add in and take away as much. And if you want to get rid of, you can kind of pick sort ascending or descending or filter. There's tons you can do with this. I encourage everyone, if you don't want to play in your own dashboard, go to this Confidence Cattle Company dashboard. And like I said, you can't wreck anything. If you ever get lost and don't know how to get back to where you want to get, just close out and restart it. It's a pretty nice interface that way. Is there any other questions on the dashboard on how to find stuff, how to do stuff while we're in it?
Not that I can see here right now, but we do have more questions.
Okay.
And maybe some of them will relate, so maybe just keep it up there, Nikki.
Okay.
Do you store the results for a particular company in a database, and if so, for how long?
Ooh, it's your results. The nice thing, so when we do profiling and genotyping for seed stock animals, so if it's a registered Angus animal or that, we store the DNA. So when we receive the hair sample, we extract the DNA, we send the big file of the genotype to the breed association, and the breed association performs the evaluations if it's a registered animal. So we don't have any of that information because they're the ones who are doing the evaluations and giving the producer back the EPDs, or the expected progeny differences, based on the genotype, based on their own reference population. But we store the DNA sample, so if we ever do need to retest it or redo something down the road, we can. So if it's a really prolific AI bull and it dies and they want to do some more testing, we can do that. As far as this program for the commercial beef, we do store all of the DNA in case anything wants to be reran in the future. As far as how long we store it, we haven't thrown anything out since we've been in Canada, but it's a pretty new company. We were Delta Genomics before, which had been around for, I want to say like 7 or 8 years. So we have all of the DNA that we started with and that we've kind of any sample we've taken. And yeah, we once our system and the profiles change, the results will never just go away. You guys, or for the identity beef, whoever has paid for them and whoever owns the animal owns the results. It's not information that we own.
Okay. Next is kind of a two-part question, I guess. First of all, if you're able to send out the chart from the presentation for the detailed report, and also could you give the email or the web address to get into the test records as well?
Like for this confidence play
That's right.
around?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can make a note of that, and I will send that out to yourself and Tracy to share with the members.
Okay. And then Tracy can send them out as well. So we're at the end of the questions here. Are there any other questions before we wrap this up? I don't see anything coming. So thanks, Nikki. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to go over this tonight. I think that was a great overview of how genomics is going to work for the project, and certainly thanks to all the members that have attended, and we look forward to hopefully seeing the majority of you in person this summer. So thanks a lot.
You guys are very welcome. Thank you for having me. And like I said, if any questions pop up, track me down. I can definitely try and answer whatever you need, and we're here to help you guys. And I think it's really cool that technology has changed and that some of the 4-H programs are utilizing the new technology. It's awesome.